So the NBA play-in tournament opens today after people would say possibly the most unpredictable season for most, and for some other teams pretty predictable, knowing some circumstances for certain franchises. The NBA has been an eventful one, as much as people wanted to downplay certain parts of the NBA season, all because I felt like overall the basketball was entertaining. I'm grateful, even though the Knicks kind of had a fraudulent 50-win campaign. We have shown to be consistent and overall competitive constants in the playoffs that you haven't seen, especially if you're around my age. We kind of stuck in the mediocre to lottery around the mid to late 2010s to even the early 2020s before Julius Randle kind of got his act together. When we actually had reasonable depth, Derrick Rose was a good starting guard for a while before the injuries piled up. And we possibly got to look towards possibly getting a new regime over in the coaching staff, some additional depths. And even though Mikal Bridges didn't have an All-NBA season, knowing his price tag over the amount of lottery picks that we traded for, he was still an exceptional, consistent, starting caliber, spot-up defensive wing. That's not like how he was in Phoenix. I think that's what people kept saying. He kind of evolved this play into more of a catch-and-shoot wing defender that kind of lacked communication with the rest of the team, and aggressively trying to hinge over and evolve his play style to fit the more ball dominance of a starting guard out of Brunson, to move out over on the floor and get to a spot. Not bad per se, but obviously people were expecting a bit higher. Not all-star caliber, but at least peaked over to the conversation that he could be, to just be more involved over to the team. Mitchell Robinson's back healthy sometimes. I felt like we lacked over in depth, and whatever we had, Thibodeau just couldn't trust. Even though I felt like Landry Shamet took a step up in production after his time over in the G League, it was good to see Cam Payne, one of the actual consistent spot-ups over on the floor. And Karl-Anthony Towns, still all-star caliber, second option on the offense. Sometimes kind of downplays whenever we play against somebody competitive like the Celtics, Thunder, Cavaliers, sometimes the Milwaukee Bucks, sometimes the Denver Nuggets. It's kind of in between for the New York Knicks around this season. You'll get a good and a bit of the bad, and sometimes the bad is a bit more potent. We've been questionable to even get into the conference semifinals like we've had over the past 2 seasons of our playoff appearances. The Cavaliers are not fraudulent. They've been an outstanding team. 64 wins, 18. That got to be a franchise record, fam. Donovan Mitchell took a step up in production like I've not seen. Evan Mobley, most people complain about the lack of versatility offensively when it comes to their front court out of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Outstanding defensive players. But, my God, Ty Jerome, outstanding. 6, Sam Merrill, catch and shoot. They took a smart trade to get DeAndre Hunter out of his contract with the Hawks. Great pickup. Darius Garland still, even though he'd be considerably undersized for the modern guard, he's still a great offensive gem that can still drop around 25 a game. So, knowing how much production they have, depth at the guard position that surprised me, still have possibly the best defensive regime. And this is just out of getting Kenny Atkinson, and they get a 60-win season. Kenny Atkinson's shown that he can do well with younger teams around the franchise and evolve their play while keeping that high chemistry. Kudos to the Cavaliers. Another kudos possibly goes to the Detroit Pistons. 28 straight. They didn't want to be considered that team. I feel like Pistons fans deserve to celebrate, knowing the amount of mediocrity they've suffered over the past decade, over the Andre Drummond years, injury concerns knowing Cade Cunningham, if he could really follow the momentum with his high stock, having a good upside but never to keep the same health. Sir Thompson has been outstanding. Both twins has been outstanding in their sophomore year. You don't really get that off sophomore seasons like that. Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Tobias Harris, they cooked the Knicks before, fam. That they've been an anchoring, consistent regime. Jalen Duren, I think the biggest loss so far is Jaden Ivey. Now, it could be possible that Cade would be available in the playoffs. But knowing how they came from lottery to a locked-on playoff spot, that is storytelling. I love it. I wish I had more coverage around the media to know how much, it is difficult to always come by when poor front office decisions, falter your mistakes, and it feels like the fans want to sell the team. Hopefully this isn't just a one-off point. They become a consistent piece over in the Eastern Conference. And then we have the Golden State Warriors after trading the Jimmy Butler. They get 7th place, only 48 wins, 34. Losing their last playoff spot to the Los Angeles Clippers that took 5th and somehow got 50 wins. Even though they got rid of Paul George off his $200 million contract with the Sixers. The Sixers are 3rd worst in the Eastern Conference, with Joel Embiid getting deactivated for the season. Tyrese Maxey suffering over injuries, a lack of depth all around, chemistry, just a lack of any confidence knowing the front office, and Joel Embiid's commitment over with the Sixers for the remainder of the season. Everything's in question. I understand missing a playoff appearance shouldn't be that much over in a conversation, but this much negativity and just dissolution over who's supposed to be your leader, but because he's the best player doesn't mean he's your leader. Just an example that's supposed to be made, Paul George obviously has been over in declining front over a bad contract. Then we got the Phoenix Suns somehow getting 36 wins. Kevin Durant's already been questioned over trade talks even over in the beginning of the season. Knowing Bradley Beal's no trade clause, even benching him, deactivating him in certain starting positions. Lack of actual coaching quality. Poor depth rotation. Poor chemistry. Lack of dedication when it comes to how they trust Devin Booker for the time being. Just a lot of stuff up in question, and Bradley Beal fleecing an NBA franchise from contending conversation, having 3 overall scoring players, and not making the playoffs. Me personally, I'll burn the whole area down. Even though you probably could just wait until the summer. San Antonio Spurs, after trading for De'Aaron Fox, Wembanyama's blood clot injury, it's got to be tough. But knowing the upside of Wembanyama can take a step up in production after his sophomore season, and he probably has all NBA talent, his gigantism does come into question how long he can keep the consistency up in his young age, and knowing the high tempo offense and how dependent he's probably got to be to keep the Spurs up. They still have young assets to pull from after the De'Aaron Fox deal that I feel like they were the major winners of. And Memphis Grizzlies, we've had a bunch of fired coaches in the latter half of the season, chemistry rise, that I'm surprised they're still making playoffs. After trading for Luka, the Mavericks take the 10th spot over from the Suns. And then we get the Grizzlies getting rid of their head coach. 48. I don't know if they want to still start from scratch. After Taylor Jenkins finishing 4-5 with Tomas Ayasu. Zach Kleiman's obviously trying to grasp around strings, knowing that possibly it was just a lack of communication, knowing how the team wanted to be a high tempo offense and be aggressive around the play, and yet they just lack any type of defensive depth, and they couldn't even get Jimmy Butler. That I felt like was a big fit on the team or on the Suns. Then Mike Malone was possibly the biggest jaw drop that you get rid of your head coach. Miscommunication, too much trust on Westbrook, couldn't ice out games, too much dependency on Nikola Jokic offensive production to lack of his defense. Like, guys, come on. We all know Nikola Jokic, like, literally, like, sloth walks whenever somebody is attacking down the lane. He is not a rim protector. He is everything but 50 and 32 for the Lakers after they were kind of middle of the pack around the play-in conversation. If how long they could get AD to keep healthy, keep consistently. This is possibly the biggest, conversation. How even trading for Kevin Durant for all that depth for the Nets, and everything that was a poor off-season move, everything that was a poor front office move has been overshadowed over the Luka Doncic trade, and they still were an outstanding team. With Austin Reeves taking a step up when they traded for Dorian Finney-Smith for D'Angelo Russell, that was a smart trade. The Houston Rockets, after getting Ime Udoka, and just the amount of young teams that are just more successful than well-known competitive teams like the Warriors, like the Lakers, that I feel like coverage takes too much time for mediocre teams that are possibly not going to be that vocal, pulling over political desperate moves that I feel like Nico Harrison was trying to do to take up a step to possibly be a Laker executive, or plead over to the Las Vegas owners, even though they were going to get an extension draft anyway. So why pull over for gambling? You know what? I'm not going to cover that. But people thought getting Dylan Brooks was possibly a weak front office choice, knowing his escapades over with his trash talk. But people forget his defensive wing play, his catch and shoot ability, and what he can do to actually captain a young squad. Next to getting Fred VanVleet, but they possibly might have to get a starting guard. Jalen Green has took a step up. Alfred Sengun has taken a step up. Amen Thompson has been outstanding. A good six-man out of Aaron Holiday. They got Jalen Smith Jr. Jayshawn Tate has his on moments, has a bit of an upside. Cam Whitmore is an outstanding scorer. Do I feel like, even being a second seed, they can make a deep playoff run? Possibly not. Usually this is not where always the high-exciting, high-tempo young squads make deep playoff runs. Could be the same for the Oklahoma City Thunder. People still possibly have a chip on their shoulder for the Denver Nuggets. Even getting rid of Mike Malone. And having a new coach trying to build over that trust and that respect in deep playoff experience when the tempo's on an all-time low. Defense is more impactful. Any smart play matters, especially in the final third over in the last couple minutes of the fourth. That's a big question. Why these franchises possibly don't want to push over the restart button. Because I can understand why the Denver Nuggets probably had to fire Mike Malone, but they fired also their GM. Me personally, I wouldn't get on the player's bad side. Trust around. The last thing you need to do after repeating a championship is get rid of all your experienced depth. Trust on your young talent. Keep Westbrook as somehow a starting, as a regular piece, while denouncing your youth. Not getting a backup center. Who you know is a center on the Nuggets other than Nikola Jokic? 50-year-old DeAndre Jordan is their other five. Dario Saric is a waste of energy, bro. What a waste of energy, bro. Can't catch and shoot anymore. He can't stretch around the wing. It is not 2018-19 season. The only people that I feel like took a step up in production was possibly Christian Brown. He's a proven NBA champion, unlike Westbrook. This is like when Harry Kane signs with the Bayern Munich. You guys don't know what I'm talking about. It's like a soccer thing where you get like a well-known, great production player, but he has a lack of silverware. Even though he has individual awards, that's not always going to escalate into high success for team basketball. That's how I feel. Even though Julian Strother, probably Jalen Pickett, and I feel like Michael Porter Jr. could possibly go for a pretty penny. Or possibly Jamal Murray. Because I feel like there's not much over to build over for the Nuggets if they continue just trying to get over regurgitated declining depth. And the only reason they pick up great wins is because Nikola Jokic is still MVP caliber talent. And y'all can't tell me otherwise. It's either miscommunication. Westbrook shouldn't be ever getting the ball in the clutch in 2025, my guy. Toss that shit to Jamal Murray. It's Jamal Murray's entire character to just clutch and just kill any type of game winner there is. Minnesota has taken a step down, 50-win season to a 49-win season. And you know what happens when you win Coach of the Year? You're possibly on the hot seat. If you have an underwhelming campaign, that's just a fact of life. I don't know how it is. How much of a short leash after one successful season you have, even though you have no championship aspirations, you get fired. You're possibly going to get, I don't know if you're going to get the Monty Williams. Chris Finch obviously has a plan, but a clash of player style, inconsistency. I feel like Jaden McDaniels is still going to step down in production. We didn't see much of Ralph Dillingham whenever he hits over in the floor. Anthony Edwards had to hard carry. His 3-point production and talent has taken a step up, but just an obvious decline off Mike Conley. Julius Randle will have the springiness. Sometimes Dante DiVincenzo pushes up inconsistency, but he can be that second unit helper that the Knicks shouldn't have gotten rid of, bro. It's a bit disappointing. We know why they had to trade Cat for Randle for contractual reasons, but it's just ridiculous. Orlando Magic, I was very excited, but early injuries of Franz Wagner early in the season. If it's they missed 20, Paulo Banchero, Jalen Suggs out for the season. This could have been great competition over if the Magic were consistently more healthy, because I feel like their coach cares. They have an outstanding rotation. They've shown that even with the lack of superstars that they can still keep a competitive sub 500 record and be up there with good competition. They'll possibly be a smart franchise to go for deep playoff pushes if they get certain guys that they need. Hell, they might get a push for Trae Young. They might gamble for G.G. Jackson, certain guys that could possibly fit over their mold and contend for players that want to probably take a step up and try to lead over a team. But this is obviously a kind of a far cry from their exciting season from before. Boston Celtics, 60-win season, and yet it felt like they had a quiet run. Even though early in the season people were complaining like, man, basketball sucks. Why? Because the Celtics are good at shooting the three, rotating around defenses, and it looks like every part of their team is already complete. Don't get me wrong, I hate Celtics. I have Celtics fans somehow in my family. And yet whenever a big franchise does well, because nobody likes Boston fans, fair enough. But when you're pushing over your media coverage, and the first thing, all because my nostalgia boner's not hard yet, is just shit on an offense that's already been established over mostly a half decade. Like, we can even have the bottom three offenses in the NBA possibly kill the 2015 Golden State Warriors offense by far. By far. Because that type of style of play has not been evaluated, and we can push over defensive schemes now that can now finish perimeter offenses that even make the Warriors more of an afterthought, where they're not even pushing top 5. So, knowing that, I don't really concern myself, but possibly still in the conference finals piece, knowing there's more of an unpredictability. Milwaukee Bucks also been on fraud watch for a while. Milwaukee Bucks, even when Damon and Giannis hit the court, they have no chemistry issue. They always try to push over whenever there's an all-star guard with an all-star forward. Pick and pop. Finish around. You guys don't know how these guys play. You guys are not even going to watch them play. So many of you NBA fans shit over on the product. Y'all don't even watch the fucking product. I don't want to hear shit. And whenever you guys see Giannis just protrude with all NBA style, dominated around the floor, trying to save Doc Rivers' job, trading over for Kyle Kuzma, and he's taken a step down in production since stat padding on the Wizards. So don't worry, Milwaukee. You were in the same boat as Miami after they traded for Terry Rozier from the Hornets. And even though they had an exceptional last couple games of the season, Pat Connaughton had a random triple-double that nobody watched. Bobby Portis kept getting in a fight with everybody. They traded for actual depth for once after getting rid of some young talent. No Thanasis Antetokounmpo. AJ Green seems to be another good token white boy over in the second unit that can just drop buckets around behind the arc. Taurean Prince actually had an exceptional season. With Darvin Ham, they won an NBA Cup. That's our Carabao Cup for the NBA season. I'm still indecisive about it because it's still, I feel like, a considerable afterthought. But at least it gives something for the mediocre teams to strive for. I guess. Kevin Porter Jr., I feel like, out of his time with the Clippers, he's an overall bucket getter. That can obviously be a prolonged score that the Bucks needed in the second half. That's why they were struggling. Even an injury-riddled Middleton was able to drop 30 against the Pacers. But getting that recurring depth around the second unit could actually work. Didn't get that much over on Andre Jackson Jr. And Giannis Antetokounmpo's the make or break still over on the offense with losing Damian Lillard. So, knowing what's going to be happening for the Milwaukee Bucks season is possibly not going to be the most deep playoff push, but they will keep a team down to the last end. So I have nothing against it, but keep your expectations low for the Milwaukee Bucks. Possibly the same for the Pacers, but they did make a conference finals before, kind of a sleeper 50-win team. But you can't expect much. Tell me how you felt about this season down below. You guys excited for the play-in tonight? That's it for me live here on the DSC Show.